Hi everyone, it's Samantha from the Dancing Soap Dish. I hope you're well. I have a cute little Easter project for you today. I'm calling these Ombre egg melt and pour soap bars. Ombre, of course, being the French word that means shade or shadow, or from going from a gradient of light to dark or two different colors. So the ombre effect here, of course, is the yellow into the pink with a little bit of orange in the middle. You can see from the side that this is a two-layer soap here, and there's also two different variations for each color. You can see this one has a white background and the egg shape and the heart shapes are colored. And then there's also the reverse of a colored background with a white egg and white hearts. And then of course there's also a purple and blue variation as well as the yellow and pink. So let's get started with the tutorial. So I'm going to get the easy part out of the way first, and that is the first layer of white soap. So there will be 2 bars with a first layer of white and 2 bars with a first layer of color. I'm making 90-gram bars. The first layers are 40 grams and the second layer is slightly larger at 50 grams. So what I've done is I've weighed out 80 grams plus a little bit extra for wastage of a white melt and pour soap base. I am adding some rose geranium essential oil, which has a beautiful spring scent and will add to the Easter theme of my soaps. Another thing I like about rose geranium essential oil is that it's a colorless essential oil, so it's really good for soap making. Now I'm going to divide my soap in half by pouring 40 grams into this separate little measuring cup. I also have some isopropyl alcohol on hand, which I use to get rid of any surface bubbles on the soap. And I also like to spray down my silicone molds before I pour my soap in. I just find the soap pours in and spreads throughout the mold a lot easier if there's a little bit of alcohol in the bottom to sort of break the surface tension. All right, so there we go. That's 1 bar there. And I'm also now just going to pour the second bar. The rest of the batch, another 40 grams, is going in here. And again, I will give that a spray with my alcohol to get rid of any surface bubbles, and I'm going to put that aside until it's fully set. So the reason the white layers need to be set before continuing with the ombre layers is because I'm going to use a couple of little breadboards here just to jimmy up one side of my soap mold, because that's how you get a really good ombre effect, is by pouring your layers on a slope. So I'm weighing out here 20 grams of a transparent soap base. It doesn't have to be an ultra clear soap base. If anything, if it's a little bit cloudy when it sets, that actually works better for an ombre effect. So like I said, I've melted 20 grams. I've added some more rose geranium essential oil, and I have here some pink liquid pigment. So this is not a dye, it is a liquid pigment. Unfortunately, dyes are not suitable to use for an ombre effect. So you will need a mica or a pigment or a color block. And you need the tiniest amount. I'm not even putting a drop in here. What I'm doing is I'm dipping a bamboo skewer into the liquid pigment and then stirring it into my soap. Again, I'm spraying down everything with my isopropyl alcohol. I'm going to pour the soap into sort of one corner of my soap mold. And now I need to adjust the height. I may need another breadboard. Just let me get another one. You want to adjust your height so that the edge of the soap just meets the opposite edge of the soap mold. And as you can see here, you can sort of see that the right-hand side is more pink than the left-hand side. So I'm just adjusting it so that the pink only just touches the opposite side of the mold. I've used the same cup again to do my next batch. I'm just going to do purple, which is very similar color to pink. So I've just used the same cup. I'm weighing out another 20 grams of transparent soap base. As you can see, it's not a lot. And again, adding just a few drops of essential oil. There we go. And as I said, purple is what I'm going to do this next layer. I'm using my skewer again. I'm just sort of squeezing the bottle until a little bit of a drop appears on the surface, and then adding that to my soap a teeny tiny bit at a time and just sort of adding and mixing until I'm satisfied with the color. But I'm just basically looking for a light tint for all my colors there. As you can see there, it's a very pretty purple. I like that one. I'm giving it a spray down with my isopropyl alcohol, spraying the mold as well, pouring it to one particular side of the mold and just letting it slowly spread. Again, I just want it touching that opposite edge, which is exactly what it's doing. So once that is set, as you can see here, these are set firm to the touch. I'm going to rotate my soap mold 180 degrees, turn it round, and pour my second colors. So again, another 20 or so grams. I'm actually doing 22, 23 grams, just to allow for a bit of wastage. I want to make sure a whole 20 grams makes it into the mold, because you know there'll always be a little bit that will be stuck to the side of the vessel that you're using to melt your soap in. So again, I have added my rose geranium essential oil. This layer is going to be yellow. So again, I've got my skewer. There's a little bit of yellow in the lid. I'm just using the teeniest, tiniest amount. Probably want it a little bit darker than that. I'm just spraying it down with alcohol because I'm creating quite a lot of bubbles as I'm vigorously stirring. So I'm just trying to get rid of those as I go. Well, yeah, I think I'm happy with that. Okay, so I'm spraying down the surface of my soap, and I'm going to pour it into this corner here and have it spread. I'm just going to let it spread. It's not going to spread all the way to the other end because I've still got my board sloped, but I'm just going to spread it as far as it spreads, and that's good enough for me. So there we go. There's the yellow, and then I'm also doing a blue layer to go over the purple. So again, melting 20 or so grams, adding my essential oil. This one's going to be tinted blue. It's the blue that I normally use just to improve the clarity of my clear transparent soaps, but in this case I'm going to add enough so that it actually looks proper blue. So here we go, a little bit of blue here on the tip of my skewer and stirring it in. Don't want it to be too dark, but I also don't want it to be too light. Once I'm happy with the tint, yeah, it looks pretty good. Maybe a teeny tiny bit more. There we go. Spray that down with alcohol, get rid of those bubbles. You must spray the surface of your soap to do the ombre effect. It'll just make sure that the leading edge isn't too thick and sort of spread it all out properly, which is exactly what you need for a really good ombre effect. And I will let those set too. Okay, so once all of your first layers are well and truly set, it's time to punch out the design. So I'm going to be using cookie cutters today. I have an Easter egg cookie cutter here, just from an Easter cookie cutter set. I also have some polymer clay cutters that I've used before. I used them in another Easter project to make these Easter massage bars. They were lots of fun. You can find that tutorial in my Easter Melt and Pour Soap Projects playlist on this channel, along with all my other Easter Melt and Pour Soap projects. I'm not going to use all of these shapes today. I'm picking out maybe this little flower here to go in the center of my egg, and just this little cute little heart here to sort of embellish the corners. So there we go. All right, so let's have a look at our first layers. The ombres are looking good. It's a bit hard to tell their exact colors against the green color of this mold, but I'm happy with the gradient effect. Okay, so the first thing you do is you take your egg-shaped cookie cutter and you line it up in the center. I'm just going to eyeball it, but it's looking like it's in the center for me. And when you're happy with its position, push it down into the soap. Make sure it's pushed to the bottom all the way around, and then very carefully and evenly ease it back out again. And I'm going to do the same for all 4 soap bars. Metal cookie cutters definitely work way better than plastic ones, so I recommend metal for this project. Once every egg is punched, I'm going to push my mold from underneath. There you go, look at that beautiful ombre effect against that white background. And I'm going to swap the white eggs with the coloured eggs. So very carefully just easing those out and then pushing them firmly back in, swapping them over. So let's have a look at that. So I have white eggs against a coloured ombre background and my coloured ombre eggs against a white background. And yeah, that's a pretty simple process, but it's a really great effect. Next, I'm going to use this little flower cutter to cut out a flower from the center of each of my Easter eggs. Again, I'm just eyeballing it, sort of lining it up in where I think the center is, and then pushing it all the way down and then pulling it back out again. And again, I just sort of want to poke. Well, it's a little bit trickier this time because it's a lot smaller. I possibly should have done this while I already had the eggs out. Yeah, it's probably easier if you just take the egg out and then you can easily just pop the flower out of the center. I'm using the back of my skewer here. And then we're going to swap the flowers over as well. So just make sure when you're putting them back in that they're going back in the right direction. Oh, look at this. Look how pretty this is here. So this is exactly a half blue, a half purple. So that shows me that I've sort of got it smack bang in the center too, which is good. That's a really lovely effect. Okay. So while these Easter eggs are super cute, I decided I wanted just a little bit more variation with the design. So I'm using this little heart clay cutter here just to punch little hearts in the corner of each soap. And again, I'm just going to be swapping those over with their white counterparts. Yeah, I was able to, I thought, oh man, how am I going to get these little hearts out? But I was able to just sort of push from underneath, push the mold from underneath and just pull them out with my fingers, really. They didn't give me much trouble at all. See, I've got pink ones and yellow ones. Oh, they're so sweet. They're so sweet and pretty. Yep, so I'm just going to punch the white ones, pop them out too, and then swap them over. Just make sure that, again, check that they're going in the correct position and that they're also facing the right way. So like the side that was facing down in the mold continues to face down in the mold because both sides of the soap will have a slightly different texture and it will be noticeable on your finished soap if you've put one of your hearts in the wrong way round. So just pay particular attention to that. Here we go. I've got some blue hearts and some purple hearts here. And I'm just swapping them around. Once you've done that, it's also imperative that you make sure that everything is really pushed down as far as it will go in the mold so that the surface of your soap will be nice and flush. So just take some time to do that. And here we are, the finished designs. What do you think? They're just so sweet. I really like those. Okay, now it's time for the second layer. Now, I was a little bit concerned that the heat from my second layer would melt some of my coloured soap and cause it to bleed up into the white layer. And I really didn't want that. I wasn't 100% sure it was going to happen, but I thought I'll take some steps to make sure that it absolutely doesn't. So I got this tip from my friend Liz from the channel Liz Loves to Make. It's a new channel, but she's already got some amazing melt and pour soap tutorials on it, so check it out. And what Liz likes to do is just get a little bit of soap. So here I've just melted out another 40 grams and I did add some more rose geranium essential oil to it, so it is scented. And I'm just going to pour a little bit into each of my mold cavities here. Oh, I sort of ran out at the end there. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a thin layer of this soap over my design before I pour like the bulk of the second layer. And what I hope this will do is it will protect, it'll just form a barrier that will stop any of the color bleeding due to being melted. And this is really good, actually. This shows that the ombre soaps weren't actually level. You can see here that the soaps are sticking out higher on one side. But what I'm doing is I'm just sort of swirling around that little bit of soap that I added there, just making sure that I'm just getting a very thin coverage over my design, just to protect it. And I mean, I'm not going to wait for it to set or anything. Because it's such a thin layer, I'm just going to sort of let it harden up while I melt my next layer of soap. So I'm doing another 40 grams, because that was 10 grams in each of those. So another 40 grams here, so 160 grams plus wastage. And I'm going to melt this down. And I'm going to scent it again with the rose geranium essential oil, which I've used the whole way through. And I mean, these are smelling just so amazing. So like a field full of flowers, which is just perfect for Easter and spring. So there we go. Pop that essential oil in there. Make sure it is stirred in thoroughly, which is what I'm doing now. And then I'm also going to just use the same little cup that I had before to weigh out my individual portions for each soap. So here we go. I'm just using the same cup. I've used the same color. I've used the same scent. So there's no harm in using the same cup. Saves on washing up time. All right, so there's another 40 grams there, which I am tipping in. There we go. So even though that was sort of that thin layer was a bit of a mess, it's getting completely covered up by this second layer, so it doesn't really matter. So there we go. There's another 40 grams going in there. And now measuring out again. Here we go. Making sure that I'm scraping all that excess in. There's another 40 grams here, but I've still got just a little bit left in the bottom of my jug, so I'm just dividing that amongst my soap cavities. Here goes the last bit in here, and the last little bit from the main jug, and that's it. We're done. Okay, so it's now the next day. I have let these set overnight, so they're nice and firm, and I'm going to take them out of the mold and see what I've got, basically. Wow. These colors are so pretty. What do you think? Look at that. The ombre effect is perfect. I'm really happy with how they turned out. Look at that blue to purple and yellow to pink. So amazing. If they need a little bit of a cleanup, I recommend buffing them with a cloth. This is a cloth made out of wood cellulose, so there's no lint to get stuck to your soaps. And I like to buff, first of all, in a straight motion and then in a circular motion. I just find by going in a circle at the end that I don't get any straight streaks across the surface that pick up the light. I get round streaks and they don't pick up the light so much and make the soap look streaky. So that's why I always turn them in a circular motion. Just tidying up any little bits also that might be sticking up on the surface. These are just amazing, and they smell divine too. They smell so beautiful, that rose geranium. All right, let's have a look. Okay, so here it is. You can see from the side there that is transparent. There's how the ombre effect was created with those two angled pores, two angled layers. You can see there's no bleeding of the white into the color or the color into the white, which is good. I'm glad about that. I also recommend, you can bevel the edges if you prefer, but what I like to do is on the back, see these upturned edges, it's best to sort of either bevel them off or grind them down. And I just like to use this cloth here because it has a texture to it, and you can just sort of use it to soften those edges, just round them off a bit and get rid of any of the bits that are sticking up, and then just buff that front a bit. And look at that, see, that's got a much neater finish to it now at the back. There we go. Tell me in the comments which one is your favorite, the yellow and the pink or the blue and the purple. So here's my favorite part of the video, where I get to share all my gorgeous pictures that I've taken of my latest soap project. So these are my Ombre egg melt and pour soap bars. This is an Easter themed soap, but if you think about it, you can totally use this technique for any other shape or colors that you want to, whatever sort of cookie cutter designs you find that would fit in a soap mold. You can make beautiful ombre designs just like this. So I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you love what I do here at the Dancing Soap Dish. And until next time, guys, enjoy.